Got it. There you go. All right. I'm Annie Marion. I'm the district conservationist here in the Waldport field office, covering Lincoln County and Western Lane County.
You just need to unmute, Annie.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you great.
Okay.
Apologize for that.
No problem. All right. I'd like to welcome you all to our local work group meeting. It's snowy. I think there's several folks that have sent me messages this morning. They couldn't make it due to power outages or other emergency meetings or whatever, but we're recording the meeting, so that'll be available for folks to watch later. So we'll go ahead and dive in. I think
Start with the polls.
Yeah, you want to start with the poll, Corey?
Well, hi, everybody. I'm Corey Owens. I'm with the Natural Resources Conservation Service, and I'm going to be running the Zoom meeting today. So I'll be in the background. If you have any Zoom trouble, you can chat me. I'll put my phone number in the chat as well. You can text me. So we're going to start with some polls just to get a feel for who's here today. And then just want folks to know that you can use the chat for any questions, dialogue. You can raise your hand. I'll be monitoring all of that. And then if you haven't already, if you could put your name and affiliation into the chat as well, that would be helpful. But just for fun to warm up with Zoom, we're going to launch this poll. Oh, my polling session has been active. Annie, you'll have to go to the bottom of your screen and you see the polls.
Yeah.
Here, can you press polls and launch the first poll?
It looks like it launched. Yeah,
Yep,
I think folks are seeing it.
Great. And then after a few minutes, Annie, you can show results. So these are just some fun questions so we know who's in the room today. I know many of you probably already all know each other as parts of the Lincoln County kind of stakeholder groups.
All right, I think we'll go ahead and end the poll. I end the poll first, Corey, and then show results.
Yeah.
Show results. All right, so hopefully everybody can see that. It looks like we've got a couple landowners, one state agency representative, a couple local agency, several nonprofit, and a couple others. Folks heard about it mostly from my email announcement, but it looks like there was a little bit of word of mouth and from the website, which is great. And everybody's used Zoom before, so hopefully we won't have too many glitches. You never know. Okay, so we'll stop sharing that. Do I just close it out, Corey, to get? Nope.
There you go.
Okay, so we are gonna go ahead and get started. Let's see. I do this. There we go. So here's our agenda. What we're going to try to cover today. We already kind of did our little intro. I'll do a little bit of talking about why we're here, what our goals are for this meeting. I'm going to give an update on our current USDA NRCS programs in Lincoln County, the stuff that we've accomplished over the last year or last several years. And then I'll hand it over to Tyler Klaus from Lincoln Soil and Water Conservation District to give an update on their activities. We'll take a quick break halfway through and then go on with some very brief updates on some other USDA programs that are available, just to kind of make folks aware if you're not already. And then we'll have time for a round robin. So I want to give everybody a chance to give a quick update, talking about what you see as priorities or projects that you have coming up, and kind of focusing that on potential for collaboration. And then we'll have some time for looking ahead. We've got a couple of potential new focus areas that we're sort of throwing around that are in different stages of development. So I'd love to get feedback from you all on how you see those working here, and how we can shape them to do the best job of addressing our top priorities. And then we will wrap up and get out of here by noon, if not sooner. We'll see. All right, so jumping right in. I just wanted to start with a quick background on who we are as an agency and why we have these local work groups. So NRCS was originally the Soil Erosion Service, started under President Roosevelt in 1933. And then a couple of years later, during the worst of the Dust Bowl in 1935, the Soil Conservation Service, the SCS, was established as a permanent agency in USDA. This was like a national crisis. The topsoil was blowing away from the entire Midwest and creating these horrible dust storms that made it all the way to Washington, D.C. And it was a real issue that the federal government wanted to address. So when the SCS was created, they set up offices all across the country and sent folks out there to help farmers. And it wasn't really that well received for the first couple of years. There was a lot of mistrust of the federal government coming in and telling farmers what to do, even if it was supposed to be in their best interest. And so they had to rethink things a little bit. And that's when the president directed states to establish what were called soil conservation districts at the time. And so those were locally led at the county level with what we have now are publicly elected board directors that really represent local stakeholders. And that has been our partnership. Our main partnership ever since then was with what are now soil and water conservation districts and the NRCS. And so we've got these local work group meetings every year to make sure that we are giving an opportunity for this local direction of the conservation work that we're doing. And so this is really important for us to be able to, we have these kind of conversations with a lot of our partners year round, but this is our chance to record these conversations and make sure that we're wrapping those into our long range strategies moving forward. Corey, it looks like there's 2 folks waiting in the waiting room. You got that? Thanks. All right, so our goals for the meeting today, this out of my way here. Kind of 3 different parts. Part of it is just Tyler and me sharing what we've been doing. So we'll give a review of what we've been doing over the past year with our projects. And I also want to introduce some new USDA and NRCS programs for folks who haven't heard about them yet. And then we also want to make sure that we give a chance to hear your voices, to listen, gather input from producers and partners to help shape our plans and prioritize our future year projects. We want to see if there's any emerging issues that we need to address, and just kind of do a check-in to see how we're doing, what we can do better. And then it's also just a chance for you all to get to connect with each other and think about ways that we can all collaborate and leverage the work that we're doing to go further. All right, so I'm going to jump into our updates. For folks who've attended local work group meetings in the past, this might be a little bit of a review, but I like to just kind of go over our main USDA Farm Bill programs. So folks are aware of what these programs are, and then I'll go into more detail on the projects that we've actually been doing in each of these. The first one is the Environmental Quality Incentives Program. This is kind of one of our biggest Farm Bill programs. And the way we do it here in Oregon is through what are called conservation implementation strategies. So these are locally directed focus areas for the EQIP funding pools. There are also 2 national initiatives, the High Tunnel and Organic Initiative, that fall under here. The next program is EQIP CIC. These are conservation incentive contracts. This was a new program that just started in 2021. And it's kind of designed as a stepping stone between EQIP and CSP. They are 5-year contracts. There's annual management activities, as well as other associated practices like normal EQIP practices. The CSP is the Conservation Stewardship Program. This is a program that is really designed to work with producers, land managers who have already been doing conservation work on their property, have a certain level of stewardship that they have achieved. And so this program it does an annual payment to recognize and maintain that level of stewardship or level of conservation. And then there are enhancements that people can choose to do each year on top of that to kind of bring their conservation up to the next level. So these are also 5-year contracts. CREP, the Conservation Reserve Enhancement Program, is actually part of the Conservation Reserve Program, which is run by FSA, our sister agency, the Farm Service Agency. But NRCS provides technical assistance on these. And the idea here is to take marginal pasture land out of production in wetlands or areas adjacent to streams in order to protect water quality and provide wildlife habitat. And that provides their 10 or 15-year contracts, and they provide annual rental payments. And then our last major program is the Agricultural Conservation Easement Program, and that encompasses a couple of different types of easements: wetland reserve easements, Healthy Forest Reserve Program, as well as ALE, the agricultural land easements. We don't have any of those here in Lincoln County, but the idea here is to protect, restore, and enhance wetlands, working agricultural lands, or forests through conservation easements. A couple other programs that we haven't really used here. Some of these have been around a little while, some are newer. The Regional Conservation Partners Partnership Program, our CPP. This is really a partner-driven conservation. So it can look a lot like our EQIP conservation implementation strategies, but it's having the partner really take the lead on working with landowners, doing the outreach, and doing some of the planning, and then also monitoring, doing keeping track of outcomes. This is something that we could look at if there are partners, local partners who would be interested in leading this. And it generally requires a 1-to-1 funding match between the partner organization and NRCS funding. Conservation Innovation Grants, SIG. These are competitive grants that help support development of new tools, approaches, practices, or technologies to further resource conservation on private lands. And there are kind of 2 different opportunities. There's the national SIG announcement every year, and then Oregon has its own announcement. And this also includes opportunities for on-farm trials. I don't think we have the sign up announced yet, but I believe that's coming sometime this spring. And then the last thing, this is a kind of a new part of USDA that was just set up recently, the Office of Urban Agriculture and Innovative Production. They currently have a grant announcement for $7.5 million available nationally that includes both planning projects and implementation projects. The deadline's March 27th, but this is really designed for nonprofits like 501c3 nonprofits or local units of government, tribes, schools, SWCDs who are working in urban agriculture or in areas that have high levels of food insecurity, lack of access to local foods. So that could still be applicable here, even though we don't have urban areas. Were there questions about this before I move on?
Links to the Conservation Innovation Grants and the Office of Urban Ag and Innovative Production in the chat for folks.
Great, thanks. And Tyler, oh yeah, so the SIG, the Conservation Innovation Grants, yeah, I think that could be a good opportunity for funding pollinator forage trials. This is something that we were talking about with our local small farms extension just yesterday. So I think, yeah, I think that could be a good opportunity for projects like that. And I know that there have been SIG projects in Oregon in the past that were looking at pollinators in pastures and that kind of management. We'll definitely follow up on that. All right. So as I mentioned before, in Oregon, we have a strategic approach to conservation, and this is the way that we deliver the bulk of our EQIP funding and some other programs as well. But the idea here is that rather than doing random acts of conservation, just kind of waiting for whoever walks in our door and planning different types of projects in different areas, we're actually looking at it strategically, saying, you know, what is our main resource concerns that we want to address? Where are they located? How can we address them in a timely and effective manner? And so these are strategies that are set up usually for 3 to 5 years in either like a specific watershed or a focused area. And we're really trying to look at having measurable outcomes from that investment by the end of the strategy. So in fiscal year 22, we had 5 CISs active in Lincoln County, or in my focus area, or sorry, my field office. So the Siletz Forest strategy is in Lincoln County. Sayusla Salmon Sanctuary is down in Western Lane County and kind of into Douglas County. And then we had the Forest Resistance and Resilience, which kind of covers a 4-county area. Forest Management Planning, which is all over Western Oregon. And then the West Side Wildfire Recovery, which was focused on all of the areas that were affected by those 2020 Labor Day fires. So the Siletz Forest strategy is actually kind of there have been 2 iterations of this strategy, kind of starting back in 2013, and last year 2020 was the last year of the second part of it. Covers the greater Siletz River Basin area, and it was really focused on forest health and water quality, keeping sediment and nutrients out of surface water. So last year we had 1 new contract that was just over $50,000 obligated, and that was really focused on weed control and riparian planting along Little Rock Creek and the main stem Siletz River. But over the course of almost 10 years of the strategy here, we've had a total of 6 contracts that obligated $980,000 and treated 2,800 acres total. And the majority of that was pre-commercial thinning for forest health. There we go. Our next strategy was the Forest Resistance and Resilience, or Forest Health Strategy. This it's a little hard to see. I don't know how well this comes through on your screen, but there's kind of a red area that's outlined there that shows the focus area. It's all around kind of the foothills of the Coast Range and the Cascade Mountains around the Willamette Valley. And so a little bit of that came over into Lincoln County, mostly just in the upper Alsea area, and then a few areas of Western Lane County. This started in 2019, and this year, 2023, is supposed to be the last year of it, but we have the potential to extend it, and we'll talk about that a little bit more later. It's really looking at forest health and diversity, trying to manage forests rather than for single-age monocultures, looking at species diversity, variable rate thinning, managing for wildlife habitat, keeping wildfire risk down, and kind of variable age stands so that you're going to be more resistant to pests, disease, wildfire, and drought. We had 2 contracts in fiscal year 19, one in fiscal year 21. And then this last year we had 2 more contracts, one of which was very large. So it covered 737 acres and was $446,000 obligated between those 2 contracts. A lot of that was for thinning and slash treatment, but there was also a lot of planting. So going back in with Western red cedar, shade tolerant species to add some diversity to Doug fir monocultures, and then doing some riparian planting and enhancement, as well as some pollinator seeding along forest roads, which is going to be pretty cool. I'm excited about that part. The forest management planning was a new one that just kind of started last year. And the idea here is that in order to qualify for EQIP or CSP forestry assistance with NRCS, a small farm or a woodland owner has to have a forest management plan in place. And so this is trying to help landowners work with a technical service provider, a professional forester, to develop that management plan so that they'll be ready and have a prioritized list of the work that they want to do on their forest. We were able to do 2 of those contracts last year. One was in Lincoln and one was in Lane County. Those are pretty cheap and easy. It covered about 400 acres. And this year we've got 4 applications, 1 in Lincoln and 3 in Lane, and I'm hoping I'll be able to fund all of those. Do we have any questions there or some comments popping up in the chat?
I got a question.
Yes, Paul.
Yeah, this, I've got a management plan for some parcels, but it's time to update those. They're older. And I want to incorporate some concepts that are in the Northwest Forest Plan, like connectivity from public land through our land to public land. Would that fit in this potential forest management plan strategy?
Yeah, for sure.
I'll talk to you after that. Perfect. Okay.
Any other questions on this?
Yeah, is there a certain date, or is it a rolling application period?
We take applications anytime, but we have usually one batching date per year. So for this year, it was in November. Last couple of years, it's been in November. We're going to have another EQIP sign up this spring, but that probably won't be for just general. It's going to be for specifically some new programs that we're rolling out.
No, I mean, is forest management planning?
Forest management planning, we can accept those applications anytime, but the next ranking would be this November, probably. So the West Side wildfire recovery, this came out of those Labor Day fires. The Echo Mountain fire up near Otis was the one included in our area. We didn't have any applications the first couple of years, but we did get one last year. So we're working on that right now. And the focus here is, making sure controlling erosion initially, keeping sediment from going into surface waters, especially fish streams and, sensitive areas, but also reducing wildfire hazard. Our fire, in the Echo Mountain fire, it burned so hot and fast that it left a ton of material dead and standing, which is now, a risk for another fire. So trying to treat some of that material and then regenerate the forest back to a good mix of native, well-adapted species, and taking care of any pests that might be moving in invasive species. Scotch broom and others like to take advantage of those bare areas. I don't know whether this one will be continued in the future. We haven't had a lot of other interest, so this might be the last year for that. I'm not sure. So the two national initiatives that I mentioned are the high tunnel and organic. These are done usually kind of at the ranked at the basin level. We've had quite a bit of interest in high tunnels the last several years. We did 3 new contracts last year. These were all in Lincoln County for just over $20,000. I've got 4 applications this year. We had a lot of competition and not as much funding. So I think I'm only going to be able to fund 1, but those applications can roll over. So maybe we'll be able to fund more of those next year. Organic initiative, we haven't had as much interest in that. We had 1 contract a couple years ago that was for high tunnel and cover crops. No applications last year, and I just have 1 application this year. So the EQIP CIC, as I mentioned, this was new in 2021. We had 2 contracts that year for about $77,000. We didn't get any applications last year. This year, the sign up is coming up. I think it'll be announced maybe by the end of this week. And so the deadline will be end of March sometime. And it's available statewide, but each basin has different focus. For our area, we're looking at pasture land. And these, there's a focus here on climate smart agriculture and forestry practices. We'll talk about this more in a minute with the IRA funding, but what we're really looking at here is prescribed grazing and nutrient management as kind of our main management practices. And then we've got a lot of other facilitating practices that can help make that possible. So if there's not enough cross fencing to allow rotational grazing, then we can help with that. Setting up livestock water off stream to keep animals out of sensitive areas, and other kind of practices like that for nutrient management too, making sure that we're keeping pasture soils healthy and keeping nutrients out of adjacent waterways. Conservation Stewardship Program, as I mentioned, these are 5-year contracts. We currently have 3 active contracts down in Lane County. 2 of those were new last year, covering about 230 acres, $38,000 obligated. And we really have only done forestry CSP in this area. And what that looks like is a lot of kind of thinning, brush treatment, and planting, but not just strictly from a production perspective, thinking about ways to enhance wildlife habitat and structural diversity as part of that forest management. So there's a number of different CSP enhancements that work for that. And then the Conservation Reserve Enhancement Program. As I said, this is FSA's program, but there's OWEB funding that's part of that, and then technical assistance from NRCS, as well as ODF and soil and water conservation districts or watershed councils in our area. This is available statewide. They're 10 or 15-year contracts, and it's aimed at restoring, maintaining, and enhancing streamside areas in agricultural lands to benefit fish, wildlife, and water quality. We currently have 6 active contracts in Lincoln County, covering about 176 acres. And there's 6 active contracts in West Lane. We have any questions here? I keep on moving.
Are these places mapped, Annie?
No.
The GIS layer of where these programs are. It'd be nice to see that, because outreach efforts, I think you give it more money if there's more linear feet or something.
Yeah, I'm not sure if they're still doing that. They did in the past. We consider the landowners location private information, so we're not able to share that publicly unless the landowner chooses to. So that could be on a case-by-case basis, but we can't just put maps of all of the locations out publicly. Margaret, did you have a question?
Yeah, I was wondering if there's any sort of like acreage limitation on these on the bottom end, you know, like if there's a minimum acreage needed to make these to be eligible, to make it viable.
There's not. So some of those ones down in West Lane County are actually quite small.
Okay.
It's a lot of paperwork and hoops to jump through for
Okay.
a small property, but if someone is really motivated and wants to do it, we can certainly do it. The annual payments are on a per acre basis and they're really low in our area. So it's not gonna be a moneymaker for anybody, but if
Mhm.
someone wants to do this, then it can help pay for those restoration costs. And it's a way to protect that area for, for 10 or 15 years, and they're renewable too. So if at the end of the 10 or 15 years, they want to re-enroll, they can.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Penny, you also have a question in the chat from, looks like Paul, but I'm guessing it's not about crop, but he's asking about, would that program include snag creation for strategy species? So maybe one of the forestry.
Oh, yeah, was that for the CSP?
There's
Go-
Paul.
Yes,
Yeah, there is a good enhancement for snag creation. Yes.
okay. Is it better if I have like two landowners together to make it because I've got two folks that would like to engage in that. Does that make it more active for that program? Because it didn't sound like there was a lot of money in that.
Yeah, there's not a ton. But I think the snag creation actually is pretty good per acre payment. I don't remember off the top of my head. Each landowner would probably have to have their own contract unless one of them is, unless somebody is managing the whole property and they could apply as the operator kind of.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Sure. All right, so our easement programs, the Healthy Forest Reserve Program was the goal is to restore, enhance, and protect forest land for endangered species recovery. And so in Oregon, this is the northern spotted owl, as well as long-term carbon sequestration. We have 4 contracts in Western Lane County that were all established between 2009 and 2012. That's kind of when that HFRP came out, and it's protecting close to 700 acres in these permanent easements. We've had more interest in this program, but there hasn't been additional funding in recent farm bills for new easements. It's the program is still around, and there's been little bits of funding for what are they, restoration contracts, but not for the permanent easements. So we'll see in the future if there is more funding available. I think there's been interest in this. The wetland reserve easements, again, are for permanently or we have, so the wetland reserve easements has an option of a 30-year easement or permanent. And this is looking at water quality, wildlife habitat, a number of different purposes. We have two easements, which includes 5 landowners in West Lane County, and they're both tidal wetlands, kind of in the Siuslaw estuary area, 385 acres. And this is something that I've been talking with the easement folks about. We haven't actually had a lot of new applications for WRE recently, but there is definitely interest in focusing on tidal wetlands on the Oregon coast. So I'm working on developing some outreach materials and working with local partners, SWCDs and soil or in the watershed councils to really look at high priority areas where this might be a good option. And if anyone is interested in this, definitely reach out to me. And I'd love some help in thinking about how to how to try to increase this program. Excuse me. So we had a new conservation implementation strategy that just started this year in Lincoln County. It's the Upper Uquina Water Quality CIS. This is concurrent with a new SIA, a strategic implementation area. That's a partnership of Oregon Department of Ag with the Soil and Water Conservation District. The focus here is dissolved oxygen and temperature impairments in these two sub watersheds, and looking at agricultural lands in that area, and trying to see what kind of conservation practices we could implement there that would help keep sediment and nutrients out of the streams, and plant trees to increase shade for long-term stream temperature moderation. We've kind of had a slow start kicking off that whole SIA process and the open house and stuff. So we're just getting going on outreach, but we did get one application for this year, and we've got some more interested landowners. So that's kind of just ramping up, and we'll continue to do some outreach events and try to keep building momentum for that one. All right, this is the big one. So NRCS is getting a very large chunk of money from the Inflation Reduction Act. It's $19.5 billion over the next 5 years. This is going to be channeled into our existing programs. So EQIP, CSP, ASAP, and RCPP. This year in fiscal year 23, we've got $2 million that's coming to Oregon for EQIP. I think about double that for CSP and some for other programs as well. So it's just a little bit, but the next couple of years, it's going to be huge. This is, more than doubling our typical budget for these programs. So we're doing a lot of kind of hiring, building capacity so that we can ramp up and be ready for it, but also trying to do the outreach and seeing where we can best use this new money. And so this is really targeted at these climate smart agriculture and forestry mitigation activities. I think Corey just put the PDF in the chat if you want to look at that, or it's available on our website too. These are not new practices. These are existing NRCS, EQIP conservation practices, and CSP enhancements that have been identified as either reducing greenhouse gas emissions, or helping to increase carbon sequestration. So this is kind of our way of focusing on those activities on farms and ranches and forest land that are going to help mitigate these climate activities. So we've got a sign up that will happen this spring for EQIP and CSP, and then there'll be more of it available over the next 4 years. And I think that's all I've got for now. Were there more questions about any?
Yeah, there was a question about the Uquina CIS. Is that associated with the TMDL?
It is, not directly, but that was part of the reason why that area was chosen, was that DEQ was interested in.
For the SIA.
Yeah, so the SIA. Yeah, the strategic implementation area, there were a couple different options, and that was one that was of interest to DEQ and ODA because of the TMDL process. Any other questions? All right. I will stop talking for a bit and let's hear from Tyler.
Alrighty, let me share my screen. Everybody see this in presentation mode?
Yep, looks good.
Perfect.
Yep.
So my name is Tyler Klaus. I'm the Watersheds Program Specialist for Lincoln Soil and Water. I'm going to talk a little bit about our fiscal year 2021-2022, but a bit of background on myself in the district. I started in September of 2021. Our fiscal year runs June to June. I primarily started working on the NWQI project on the Select, so a lot of drinking water work and working with our technicians out in the field on restoration activities. So I didn't take over in the role I'm in now until about March maybe of 2021. So some of these older projects I'm not as familiar with, then I wasn't participating in, wasn't even here. So I'll go over those briefly, and then I'll talk a little bit more about some of the future activities and current things that we're doing. But I cannot see the chat, so if you have any questions, just please raise your hand. So just a little bit of what I'm going to discuss again, the financial report. I'm not going to go into it too much, but just to give you an idea of some of where our funding comes from. A year in summary, a basic basin by basin accomplishments and things we're doing. And then, as I said, upcoming work and questions. So the first one, just some numbers here on district budgets and expenditures. The district is actually on an upward trajectory. We've had, since COVID, some trouble keeping staff, which has been a challenge in us completing our work and getting new work. So we are on an upward trajectory though, and we're getting new technicians, and hopefully we'll have another specialist here soon. But a large portion of our funding does come from ODA, and the district is focusing primarily on agricultural water quality issues, including restoration, drinking water protection through technical assistance, and also noxious weed work, which is a small sliver of the pie here, but in our actual budget, we have a significant amount of work that needs to be done on that for the Forest Service, for CPRCD, and we're working with OPRD as well.
Tyler, you have a question. Where are the footprints from?
Paul, are you more so
Yes.
about like where our service area is? Or footprints for each of the projects?
In your photo, Tyler, he wants to know where the bear footprints are.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh no, this is an old presentation, so I don't know. It's not my photo.
Oh, you could have made Sasquatch.
It's from your backyard,
right.
Paul.
So a few pictures just from projects we've done. The picture on the left, as you saw in our little pie chart, we do a lot of work with Mid-Coast Watersheds Council. We've got a really good relationship with them. We share technicians, which allows us to have them year round, which is awesome for us to build capacity, get people skills they need, and just keep people moving. And the first picture over here is Mill Creek, which they were doing some surveying there after large woody debris placements, restoration on South Beaver, and then some seed collection that we do every year. So we'll go basin by basin, start up here kind of in North County and work our way south. So the 2021-2022 fiscal year, we did not have much going in North County. Just some of the Mid-Coast Planning Partnership, which again, I was probably in the last month of that. So partners here probably have a lot more information than I do about that process and where that's going now. I am familiar with the kind of movement that's happening in the implementation funding that was just received. So I'm excited to see how that prioritization and continuation of the work that's happening on a kind of larger, broader scale is going to pan out for us and continue to work. Moving all the way to the Sluts. We've got a number of different projects here. The Sluts is our focus area. So as I said, we do get a lot of our primary funding is from ODA, and one of our strategies or areas we focus on in that is the Siletz. That is something we can change if we want to, but the Siletz has a lot of agricultural activity and a lot of willing partners in that area. So right now we're going to keep it there and continue doing the work. But some of the turbidity threshold sampling that was done through a grant with the Oregon Health Authority, Business Oregon, and the city of Newport. The beautiful Siletz Basin. That's my favorite swimming spot on the right. But I'll go back here for a second. So the turbidity threshold sampling was put on hold after some of the continuous monitoring equipment was broken by heavy rains and a big storm that happened. So that project is continuing forward. We're looking at opportunities to find a new location upstream to give us some data on background thresholds for turbidity of industrial timber above Moonshine Park as a baseline for other monitoring efforts across the Siletz Basin. The Siletz is pretty unique in that it's the drinking water source for quite a few different municipalities. So again, that's why it's a focus for the district in our continued work there. So the focus area, about 4% is zoned agricultural, primarily in pasture land for beef and cattle, and 82% is for timber. So it's a very industrial timber driven land use basin there. The focus area process here, I'm not going to get too far into the rabbit hole on it since this has been going on for quite some time. But we're using our focus area funding right now to assist some of our other programs and act as match for implementation of restoration and BMP projects. And that leads me to the Siletz DEQ non-point source implementation grant that we received. This grant is currently being used to assist some of our agricultural landowners. Most recently, the Walker Farms had an installation with NRCS's help there for the cost share to put in a heavy use area for their sheep. So that got completed in December through all of the rain and flooding that happened, and the flock is very, very happy now. So I'm pleased to see that funding is getting used there, and also is helping us with some of our non-point source water quality concerns. Primarily there, it was with shallow groundwater. So although it didn't have a surface water connection directly to the Siletz, we are aware that that shallow groundwater makes its way there eventually. So we were able to help fund some of that. For those of you that have agricultural partners in the Siletz, we have funding for that still, and we're looking for more partners. Right now, there's quite a bit of money in the Siletz for the district. So if you know any farmers that want to do work, that's related to ag water quality, we'd be happy to hear from them. The other program here, the Siletz Coho Business Plan Stakeholder Engagement, I need to just cross out the Coho Business Plan part of that. There's been some slow movement on what the original proposal was, which was to target specific landowners and areas that could improve coho habitat and work on workshops across the basin to discuss those issues with agricultural landowners. We've kind of changed that a bit, and we'll be holding these workshops now this spring. So they are moving forward. I'm pretty excited about that. So we'll have 4 workshops, 2 of them on pesticide and herbicide use in agricultural lands and their effects on water quality. We've got a couple of ODA speakers that are going to be coming. Evie Smith, our small farms coordinator, is kind of leading those workshops, and I'm very happy that she's helping out with those. So those will be happening. We've got one workshop on ecological solutions to water quality issues on agricultural lands, where we'll be doing that at Euchre Creek Farm, where we're currently doing restoration activities. And have some fun things with plant propagation and discussions of native plants on edge habitats and choosing the right plants to make sure we're not, planting these wonderful, beautiful things that are then toxic to livestock. So that'll be happening in the last workshop will be on infrastructure improvements, primarily focusing on exclusion fencing, gutters, roofs, retention ponds, all of those sorts of things, and how they connect with water quality and the resources we currently have to help people either with cost share, or if we can, always the goal is to pay for as much of it through NRCS in the district. So move on to some of our restoration projects here. Euchre Creek in the fiscal year 2021-2022, we actually purchased a bunch of the plants for this project and needed some more time to get the project site ready. And we just started planting that this winter, actually. So 2022-23, we were able to this fall get in there with the help of the landowners, do some brushing, do some selective herbicide treatment. And we're getting a lot of plants and trees in the ground now. So that project's moving forward. Great cooperators. They're going to be hosting one of our workshops, as I said. They're also going to be working on some pollinator pasture management and forage trials with Small Farms program. So lots happening at Euchre Creek. If you can make it out there for our workshops, I highly recommend it. It's a beautiful place.
Hey, Tyler, this is Fran. I got a question for you. This stream looks pretty down cut in places. Is there any potential for large wood placement or beaver enhancement?
So this is, I need to change the pictures here, Fran. These pictures are actually from a different project, so I need to update those. The Euchre Creek project is actually more of a terrace. The entire stream bank there is probably about 15 to 20 feet is where the pasture sits, and then it's just a cliff into Euchre Creek. So potentially, I think we'd have to get cooperation from the industrial timber people from across the way to get access. The only point of access to the creek on the farm is actually just a small trail. So I think it might be a little difficult to get wood in there, but yeah, I think it would be a potential opportunity for sure.
Can I follow up with that?
Yeah.
The CREP and the REP and these other conservation programs, how do they deal with, you're planting the willow and beaver come in? Is there an agreement that you put in place? The reason I ask is there's a memo from U.S. Fish and Wildlife related to the Farm Bill about establishing those conservation efforts. Do you have this in play here?
I don't believe.
It's a beaver acceptance program.
I don't believe so.
I can share with you the Henson memo from U.S. Fish and Wildlife about, and it's trying to develop this program. And I don't know if it's really been embraced by the Soil and Water Conservation District or any of them, but it's part of the solution from my perspective. So I'll get that in hand and then forward it to you.
Awesome. That'd be helpful. Thanks, Paul. Fourth of July Creek. I have very little information on this project as I was coming on. This was just coming to an end. So large woody debris placement, installation, and then some restoration activities there. That's about as much information as I have on it. Long Prairie is one of our other projects. It's up in the Silettes by Twin Bridges there. And this project is coming to a close. It actually just finished in December of 2022. But in 2021-2022, we were able to get the installation of our trees in these reed canary grass meadows that were kind of taking off in locations where large woody debris was placed. So our job was to go in, whack back the reed canary grass and get some trees in there for shading. During the summer this last year, we went back and did some maintenance on that and were able to cage the trees that we had and also release some of the legacy restoration trees, as I like to call them, that are about 10 foot tall and starting to get girdled by those cages. It's something I see a lot that we don't have funding to address, you know, the 10 years later when the trees really start expanding and those cages are still there. So I was really happy that we could get those off of there and then reuse a lot of those cages for our trees as well. So good project. I'm trying to get out there to get the final reporting done. And unfortunately, they are clear cutting the hills all around Long Prairie Creek right now. So it's inaccessible. And I anticipate there will be more reed canary grass now and other pest species moving in. Yeah, Fred.
Thank you. I guess this is a question more for Annie about just that point you made that, you know, also at the mid-coast, we plant trees, maybe part of our match is landowner, you know, maintaining, but that's often not successful. And I was just wondering if any of your programs allow ongoing riparian maintenance, you know, tree and maintenance.
They do. We try to build that into the contracts when we're doing planting. And we're sometimes just limited on the length of the contract and when stuff is getting done, but we try to make sure there's a good site prep done before and then at least a couple years of, you know, release maintenance after. But sometimes you need to come back in again, you know, 5-10 years later and do some more enhancement or planting where you might have lost some trees or shrubs, something like that.
So what happens? Just say it's a 5-year or 10-year easement and you got to go in after that. You have to do another application.
Yes.
And I think that's similar to our OWEB programs as well. That's what these are. You know, we go in for 2 years after the planting and we get as much as we can done. And then this project was a continuation of a previous restoration project. So then we were lucky enough, we had time and access that we could go back and kind of do that maintenance that maybe wasn't technically in the contract, but has definitely been useful. So enhancing. I'm going to scoot along. Oh, yeah, Paul.
Yeah, a justification for revisiting those projects and doing another component to riparian restoration is the Christie de Bala synergistic carbon story paper. If you haven't seen it, it's really good. It justifies running back through an area that we've already done, planted, with a focus on conifer and maybe a couple of other species. But that paper really leads us to a next step, a 2.0 is what I'm calling it, revisiting past projects with that pollinator component. And it's also a carbon component, which really, when we were planting some of these trees that are now 10, 20 feet tall, no one was talking about carbon. It was just, I want to get some shade. And so if you haven't seen that presentation or document, I can share that.
Yeah, definitely send that over. I think any justification we can have, but especially it sounds like there's quite a push for carbon sequestration and understanding that and kind of implementing that. So resources on that would be helpful. I'm not terribly savvy on it. So.
Okay, I can get that to you for sure. Okay.
Thanks. Continuing on the OHA Selects turbidity threshold monitoring, this is old data. As I said, we're working on finding a new suitable location right now. The plan is to put it back at Moonshine Park where it was. But we are moving ahead right now with a small grant application, hopefully, or a full OWEB grant application to do riparian restoration at Moonshine Park. And part of that is because the location it was previously at is one of the main access points for swimmers during the summer and campers there. So we want to clear the bank and see what other opportunities there are to site this. And then also, of course, improving riparian habitat, adding conifers, getting rid of blackberry, reed canary grass, and just helping with the maintenance in that upper stretch. The Equina, in 2021, 2022, we kind of kicked the can on the SIA, which was our main focus there. The SIA is the strategic implementation area. The first year 0, year 1 is that local planning, a compliance evaluation, which is a desktop review by ODA to determine if anybody's out of compliance, if there's, manure storage issues, if there's improper vegetation, and then they categorize these from limited opportunity to a potential violation. The district, as I always say, and is important to note, we are not a regulatory agency. We do not do regulatory work. We keep our hands clean and away from all that. But because they then kick this off to us, we do go to the open house, which we had this last fall in 2022. Good turnout for that, good food. NRCS was there, lots of local partners, and we did get some traction. We have a few people that are potentially interested. Sounds like more in high tunnels than all the restoration activities, but we'll get there.
If we high tunnel the stream bank, we can put shade cloth up, Tyler, and then we hit all of our shading targets that way. It's a very long, sinewy high tunnel.
The Upper Equina right now, I'll just get into a little of where we're at, but we are finalizing our monitoring proposal for the SA. And to your point, Paul, this is in conjunction with the TMDL and the new Rules Advisory Committee that is happening. It's a little bit of a different approach for them, but we are kind of utilizing the SIA as an opportunity to work collaboratively with DEQ to get them the information they need so that they can have that data for the TMDL development. So a big component of the SIA is going to be that monitoring. At first, we thought it would be efficacy, but we're thinking more so now as a baseline and better understanding of just what's happening now in that place. I'm going to move on to the ALSI. So we've got a couple things going on in the ALSI, primarily noxious weed work down here in Central and South County. The CPRCD agreement that we have has been slow moving. We have those 3 programs at the district, and unfortunately, we have not had a noxious weed specialist since I've been here. So we had one for a brief time last summer and unfortunately lost him to grad school. But the ALSI Weeds program is for treatment of knotweed, yellow flag, iris, and policeman's helmet. And we do have a contractor who is going to be doing that for us through the rest of this year. And then that program will end in December. But we also have the USFS Good Neighbor Agreement. So we've got a couple of those. One of them is in support of the elk meadow creation and some of the thinned sites in the Siuslaw. So that is a very focused agreement with the Forest Service. No private landowner agreement there. But we did get additional funding that started in FY 21-22 for a couple of target species, again, knotweed, yellow flag iris, policeman's helmet, false brome, lesser celandine, and I'm gonna forget the last species. But the district is in development of a work plan to be able to access that money. Right now, we're looking at the agreement originally just had the whole county treat all these weeds across the whole county and do EDRR, which is not focused enough. So we're working on getting that work plan developed and targeting specific areas that are strategic and being able to manage with the resources we currently have. Down to Yachats, our final basin here. So we're doing some work, ODA temperature monitoring, continuous temperature monitoring over the summers. We deploy our loggers in May, pick them up in October. we have a mid-season audit. It's a wonderful opportunity for us to go and get some in-stream monitoring work done. All voluntary, pretty simple. There is some interest there on expanding the parameters by local stakeholders, and we're working with Rob Hibbs at ODA to understand kind of how we might use the volunteers to get some additional parameters of dissolved oxygen with new equipment, using the same type of hobo loggers we currently have, but just getting new ones there. In FY 21-22, we did assist OPRD with the Amanda's Bridge turbidity monitoring, which was required for the installation of that new bridge. Wasn't a big concern there, but was required. So we came out and took our samples, and everything passed. As I said, the temperature monitoring, already did that, but that is our downstream location. It's a lovely place to go. As part of the protocols, we do have to wait 30 minutes for the YSI to take the temperature, just as part of the procedures, which is a fantastic time during the summer to take a quick swim. So just some upcoming work. We do have the NWQI project, which is something that I was originally hired on to do as my primary responsibility. Since then, we've been kicking the can on it and getting phase 1 and phase 2 completed. We're currently on phase 3 of that project and are going to get some assistance from GSI Solutions on that. I actually have that contract in my email I'm going to be sending over to them. So we're getting some assistance there. That's an NRCS project that then will lead to an outreach program and hopefully implementation funding to do continued outreach and stakeholder engagement for source water protection of the Silettes. That's the area of it. The Silettes is very large. A lot of interesting things going on there. Primarily when we're looking at drinking water, it is upstream of the town of Silettes. That's where the intakes are. So we aren't looking all the way downstream into the estuary and even into some of the lower areas. But yeah, looking primarily upstream, and a lot of that is industrial timberland with some agricultural use. But we are focusing on the ag use and giving some mention to forestry, but that is not the focus. I talked a little bit about noxious weed control. We are continuing with those efforts. And as I said, the work plan is in progress for that. If anybody knows a noxious weed control specialist that is interested, we're on, I think, 1.5 or 2 years trying to hire that. So it's a good job. You get to work on elk prairie meadows. It's beautiful. Community outreach and education. We just had our native plant sale this year. That's me with our 2 technicians. They were a great help. So we sold almost all of our plants except for, I think, 5 or 10 of them. So we're going to take those and use them on some projects. Our efforts did change a little bit this year. We shifted from December to February and focused more on pollinator species, and part of that is our current and future work on the Oregon silver spot butterfly. So we wanted to really focus on some of those woolly sunflower, red columbine, shooting star, all of those beautiful pollinator plants that sometimes are hard to get. So paid off for us, and we got to get a lot of good information out there and get a few landowners interested in some agricultural restoration projects as well. So as I said, select stakeholders happening, the Upper Uquina stakeholder engagement. We're going to be replicating some of those workshops from this spring in the Upper Uquina. And then we are focusing on the silver spot butterfly for outreach and engagement through 2024. I didn't mention that earlier on, but we do have funding from U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service to do some work south of Lincoln County from Yachats Bray Point to Rock Creek, trying to engage landowners to do salt spray meadow restoration. Unfortunately, not a lot of people want to work with us right now down there. So we're shifting those funds to continued outreach and education So look out for some science pubs. They'll be happening across the Central Coast. We've got one booked with Beer one booked at Wolf Tree. We're going to have Anthony coming to talk with OSU about pollinators and some of the forage trials happening, the OSB, a lot of those pollinator talks. So silver spot butterfly, we did, as I said, get that agreement. We're still kind of working on that. We applied for a partner program agreement for urban pollinator gardens, and those are to support OSB reintroduction sites. So we're looking at within 4 miles of Yaquina Head and 4 miles of Yachats, engaging with private landowners on installing urban pollinator gardens from 500 square feet to about half an acre is what we're capping it at. That program is a 10-year agreement with U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and the district as the permit holder. And we provide some technical assistance there. We also provide plants. So if anybody is looking for OSB plants, I have about 1,000 coming in this coming fall. And then for the next 4 years, I'll have 2,500 plugs coming in every year. So if anybody is interested in doing OSB work, please contact me. There's going to be a lot of stuff happening. A little longer than I anticipated, but any last questions?
Great.
Gonna use
Thank
the
you,
chat.
Tyler.
I just wanted to
Sorry.
take a quick opportunity and thank Tyler. I'm on Tyler's board there at the Soil and Water Conservation District, and just note for this group that Tyler's been doing a great job being strategic with the limited staff capacity that we have, and making sure that we're following through with our obligations. Some of them, as he noted, were not obligations he made; these were made years ago, and making sure that we're growing that capacity. And yeah, I think if we'd really love some staff to help us get all this work done and potential work done. So I just wanted to give some kudos to Tyler for this group and thank him for that. And yeah, I'll keep working on the landowner side for what I can. But yeah, we'll hopefully get some additional capacity, and Tyler has a good idea of how to strategically grow that into the priorities that we set here.
Thanks, Alan.
Great. Thanks so much, Tyler. We're running a little behind schedule. I don't think it's a big deal. We'll just try to keep our round robin a little short and still leave time for discussion of future projects. But I do want to take a very quick stretch break. Everybody get up, grab water, run to the restroom. We'll be back in 3 minutes. So we'll start up at 11:18. All right, looks like most folks are back. So I think we will just switch the agenda around a little bit to make sure that we have time for getting feedback on our potential future projects. So we'll do that now. I'll do a quick, very quick do the USDA, other USDA programs, and we'll launch into that, and then we'll finish up with the partner updates and round robin at the end. I think we should have time for all of it. All right, so let's see here where I am. Okay, so other programs, I'm not really going to go into any of this, but I just wanted to make folks aware, if you're not already, that we do have our sister agencies in USDA, the Farm Service Agency and Rural Development, offer a lot of programs for farmers and forest owners. FSA has a lot of different emergency and disaster relief programs right now. They also do farm loans and crop insurance, and they have an organic certification cost share program that's available every year. I think the sign up is usually in the fall. If you want to learn anything more about that, please reach out to the FSA office in Tangent. They cover Lincoln, Benton, and Lynn counties. Rural Development is also in that same office, and they provide housing loans, rural development grants, but there's also value-added producer grants that are available, utility programs, a bunch of other stuff. We have a new program, the Organic Transition Initiative, that should be rolling out this year, but we haven't actually gotten the final details, and so we don't have a sign up yet. But the idea here is that it's a multi-agency effort trying to help existing farmers transition to organic certification. There's different parts of that, including mentoring and advice. So it's sort of setting up farmer to farmer networks for folks to learn from experienced organic farmers regionally. There's direct assistance that'll be available through NRCS. We'll have financial assistance for a new organic management conservation practice. And it's also just building our capacity internally to work with organic producers. The risk management agency will have assistance with crop insurance, and agricultural marketing service is going to be working on organic market development. So more on that coming soon. All right, so looking forward, I've got 4 different projects that I wanted to talk about. The first is local foods and climate resiliency. So this is a new proposal that would cover our whole basin. So the sort of central southwest part of the state. And it's really focused on increasing food security and climate resiliency by addressing organic matter depletion, plant productivity and health, and habitat for wildlife and pollinators on farms, and that are contributing to the local food markets or initiatives. So this could be community gardens, tribal gardens, and farms that are serving local farmers markets or direct sales, whatever it is. These are the conservation practices that are proposed to be included. So it's a lot of focus on soil health, nutrient management, pest management, and that kind of stuff, as well as wildlife habitat. And there's some supporting practices. So I guess my question is, does this seem like something that would be useful in Lincoln County? And are there specific partners that I should be reaching out to who might be interested in seeing this developed or helping with outreach once it, if it gets in place, that kind of stuff? Go ahead and raise your hand or put comments in the chat, whichever.
I guess in short, Annie, yes. Yeah, I'm not, in some ways, the intervention is like long overdue on this topic. And in other ways, like I feel like we're a little bit early because of the capacity limitations of especially our producers.
Yeah.
In our county, we don't have like one, industry organization that represents all the potential partners that, would take advantage of this sort of a program. And so we're sort of trying to herd together people when it works. And I know 10 Rivers Food Web has been working for years out here on the coast on this. There's individual producers and market associations that are trying to mostly enhance local food systems, but also do climate adaptation work alongside that with the rationale that with a local food system is less carbon intensive for food distribution and production than other potentially other systems. So I know I'm preaching to the choir there, but yes, I think there's a lot of opportunities here. Producers have really limited capacity, so anything that can help you partner with somebody to help them, I think would be great. So OSU Extension is the primary one that comes to mind. You're well aware. 10 Rivers Food Web is trying to be a player here on the mid coast. So yeah, I'm very positive on the scope of the initiative.
Great. Thanks for that, Alan. Mike?
Yeah, and I think the tribe through our farm property, I know you've met with Seth. He would love to get involved in a lot of this stuff. So yeah. Yeah,
great. Paul?
There's a farmer that was a wholesaler direct to a number, I think he had like maybe 10 or 15 restaurants that he would get organic veggie salad greens to. And he says, oh, my program could be expanded. Now the guy's, I think, retired. I could check in with Don, and because he would be an excellent conduit for expanding the hoop house and this program, I think. So I really think it's I really like this program. I hope it floats,
Great. Yeah, I would love to talk with him if you can get me his info.
Yeah, I can do that. He lives up the Yachts River. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks. All right. So
Annie,
we will. Oh yeah,
sorry,
Tyler. Sorry.
I know the Yahat's demo garden is going to be closing with the OSU Master Gardeners, and I don't know if there's an opportunity with some of their programming there or in Lincoln City with some of the different communities there and using this for community gardens, like you said. How would that apply?
Community gardens, depending on how they're organized, can apply for assistance through EQIP to get a high tunnel, to do cover crops, to do crop rotation, a lot of these other practices, irrigation. Well, actually, I don't know if we included irrigation in this one, but yeah, so they could be eligible for cost share assistance.
Awesome.
For those
Thanks.
projects. Yeah. Great. All right. Thank you all for ideas there. We will keep on working on that. So this is one that I talked about earlier. The forest resistance and resilience strategy was originally written for 5 years. This is the last year of it. I've talked with the district conservationists in Benton and other part of Lane County. And I think that they are interested in extending for at least one more year. But want to get everybody else's take on if this is still important and if there might be a geographic extension that we would want to include in this that still makes sense as part of this, fits with the goals of this strategy, but maybe covers some areas that we've been missing up till now. So it's not real easy to see on this picture, unfortunately, but the kind of like teal outline is the current focus area boundary. And like I said, in Lincoln County, that just covers the upper Alsea right now. I put little stars in there, sort of roughly showing where the in orange, the existing contracts under this program, and then yellow are sort of areas where I've had either applications, people interested in forest management work, or I've got folks that have developed a forest management plan or are applying to develop a forest management plan, which then could be implemented with this kind of funding down the road. Any thoughts on areas where there's non-industrial private forest that would benefit from, this kind of assistance? Yeah, Fran. Oh, you're muted still, Fran.
I'm sorry. If there's only 1 year of funding left, my feeling would be to extend it all the way to the coast. I know that there is a property that I'm involved with on the Equina, on the opposite side from your star there, that could definitely benefit from this. And, we have had fires, as the Otis fire represents. So unless there's a reason not to extend it all the way to the coast, it seems like it would be prudent to do so.
Thanks for that, Fran.
And Annie,
Paul?
I don't know if you know Bev Law or some of these folks at OSU. They produced this document that I think could help with a next step, maybe not in the short term, but it's forest reserves protecting biodiversity and mitigate climate change. And they focus on, basically it would be what you're doing gives you, this document gives you solid ground to expand the program. And so I should make sure that you have access to this document as well, because it fits.
Yeah, can you send that to me, Paul? That would be great.
Really, really a clear roadmap, I think, for saying it's going to be a biodiversity and carbon piece of the story.
Mhm. Any other comments, ideas on this?
Annie, I don't know how it dovetails with the other programs that you have that apply to forestry, small private forestry, but the kind of new thing, I guess, in the last year, on the forestry resiliency front has been the emerald ash borer, discovery in Western Oregon. That's a lot of landowners I've talked to have questions about that and what the potential impacts are in our service area, what they can do. Oregonians aren't familiar with this bug much. And also sudden oak death. We have an ODA quarantine zone in Southern Oregon, but now some landscape plants in Lincoln City have been found to have sudden oak death. And again, landowners know what the potential hosts are. The host list, potential host list, and host list confirmed is very wide for that.
It's a lot, yeah.
So it has the potential of having a much wider impact. It's just maybe we don't know, or we don't have enough monitoring to know where that is and how clinical these plants are. But I think there's a rationale, like based on not that the sky is falling, but that there's a rationale for some of these practices along those lines as well.
Yeah.
And that doesn't, the lines we have in the current program, it seems kind of arbitrary. Just it's sort of the dry side, right? Of the range, where the fire danger may be more enhanced.
It's the higher fire danger area, but that doesn't mean, like you're saying, that we don't have pest and disease and other issues too.
Yeah. So I guess long story short, the county is going to remain 98% forested. We need to help manage that property, and then these climate changes and invasive species pressures are gonna continue to be a pressure on forest resilience. So I don't know how to be any more strategic than that. I mean, if we've got the funding, it would be great to expand that.
Do they have?
Yeah, that is the challenge.
Looks like Wilda and Steve might have some.
Well done, Steve.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that as a landowner, in your expanded focus area, we think it'd be great to expand it because our forest property is there and we certainly could use some help.
Great, thank you. Dan Stark, our OSU Extension Forester, was on earlier. Unfortunately, he had to leave for another meeting. He did leave me a couple notes, which I can't see now in my chat, but did include what you're talking about with the emerald ash borer. I know that that's a known issue. They're looking at it. They're doing some mapping of the state. I think most of the really high density ash areas tend to be more in the Willamette Valley, but we definitely do have ash here on the coast too. And then, yeah, he flagged up that sudden oak death up in Lincoln City area that, was originally just one property. It's been found on a couple other properties. I think they're doing more testing and treatment in that area, but that's going to be an ongoing issue. We don't know whether they'll be able to completely eradicate that whole outbreak there. So yeah, I will definitely follow up with him as well on this. Heather, do you want to talk about to be strategic in an area where our whole county is forested and we've got sort of a mix of ownership and the private ownership forest that, has this lack of resiliency is sort of scattered all over.
Yeah, I appreciated the irony of my statement. Let's be strategic countywide, right?
Yeah, and I understand everybody, just have maybe put the whole blob for the county. I think there are ways we can be strategic, and I was just messaging Ty, our NRCS forester as well. I was just curious where maybe ODF has some priority areas as well, or U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service as well, to see, or Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife, where are some of those people that aren't here today, where are their priorities that we could work with them on being strategic in this forestry area. I think there's a lot of opportunities for the climate smart ag and forestry practices that we could see where we have some new maps that NRCS is prioritizing to look at some of these practices, and maybe we could also look at that as well and prioritizing those areas as well. I think in Coos and Curry County, we have had a sod strategy, and unfortunately we have not had a lot of people applying. So we ended that strategy. And one of the challenges was just the small acreage, and people just didn't really, this is taxable income. And sometimes people don't realize that and just didn't want to have anything, pay anything. And that's something for NRCS, is that we believe, a landowner should have some opportunity to pay, because then they don't really have ownership of that practice. But there's opportunity. So I would just see where there are some of the other strategic plans for some of the other people that are not here, and getting their input as well for this strategy, because as Annie stated, we are coming into a lot of funds coming in. We need to have a huge interest of landowners, not partners, landowners that said, yes, I will apply and interested. That's what we need. So I think whatever we can do working with our partners to get that interest would be really helpful.
Great, thanks. Tyler, do you have another comment on that?
Yeah, I just wanted to note, I put some resources in the chat about the emerald ash borer from ODA. They did a really good job when this first started happening about getting some information out, and the first link gives some resources and connects to the Department of Forestry risk maps as well. So just some good information.
Great, thank you. All right.
I think Heather had a really great idea consulting ODF. They had to recall their wildfire risk map and rework it this last year, but they're, the I guess the rationale is still there and could be applied to other county. And so, ODF Toledo is responsible for fire suppression around, and I think they're probably well aware of where some high priority areas are for treatment. So
Yeah, I'll definitely reach out to them. And they have a new small woodlands representative who's actually Joe Cock, who used to be our North County stewardship forester. So I'll reach out to him and see what kind of priority areas they might have in the county. Paul, did you have another comment?
Yeah, I did. In terms of the fire, I'm sure that you all have watched the presentations by various folks on fire. And for us in the Coast Range, I've watched and attended a number of those. And one of the statements that continually comes to the surface for me is 80+% of the fires are human caused. So, and then when I ask the presenter, how effective is the program to raise awareness and concern about that very fact? And they say, well, we don't really have a very good program. So I think that should be a high priority. And I call the Forest Service when I see some bad actors out there, which there are normal folks that think, oh, it's summertime, I can have a little fire and camp out and drive into this area. And those are the folks that cause the fire, or some. And so
Yeah.
we interface with that from my perspective as a priority. And I'm talking to the Forest Service about it, but your program could actually be a part of it as well, I think, is I'd say materials and little town halls and some of those facts about prevention. It's a prevention,
Yeah.
So
Good comment. Thank you. All right, I think we will move on. This one is a little out there. This is something that came up that Washington NRCS has been doing, I think, for several years now, a native Olympia oyster restoration. They've had a strategy that's been helping fund this oyster restoration in Puget Sound with some partners, really active partners there. I think that NRCS has done other shellfish work in Rhode Island and Florida. Is that right, Heather? So this isn't something we've done in Oregon before. It's a little out of our normal focus area, but it could be a need. So I know that Stan Van de Wettering with the tribe has been doing this work for a decade or more. And there's Dick Vanderschaff with the Nature Conservancy was doing some work for a while. Steve Rumrell at ODFW is interested. I think there was somebody, Fran was saying, at OSU who's done some work on this. So it's definitely been work done in the Yaquina as well as up in Netards Bay, down in Coos Bay. So this could be a strategy that we try to set up for, the whole Oregon coast, or those targeted areas on the Oregon coast. If there's interested, producers, either landowners or leasers who would want to do this. It's not going to be something that we throw together this year. I think this is just kind of the initial conversation, but I wanted to throw this out there and see what kind of interest or ideas there are. And I can kind of, we can do some follow-up meetings and start working on developing this if there is interest in that. Mike, did you want to comment on this?
I was just going to mention that, and you pretty much said it already, that we've been working on this off and on for quite a number of years. And yeah, we definitely would be interested in partnering on it.
Great. Any other comments?
I'll just add that I've been to Rhode Island and I've toured the shellfish projects that they have there. And they've had a lot of great success. And they've done a lot of cool work, and they've got great producer groups and stuff. So it's definitely something that you wouldn't be reinventing the wheel. You'd just be adapting to Lincoln County, which is pretty cool.
Great, thanks.
And you get to go out on a boat.
Yeah, so this, I don't know exactly what form this would take either. If, I think in some other states, they've done this as RCPPs, where it's really a partner-led approach. So they've got some match funding that they're able to use from other sources, and then NRCS would be able to contribute to those projects as well, but really have that kind of ownership and local leadership from a partner who's really involved in the effort and knows what they're doing. So that could be an avenue we look at.
Annie, this is Fran. So,
Yeah,
so it has to be on, can it be on GSL land? Or does it have to be on, quote, private lands that are, or have a private lease?
it can be, yeah. So it's either privately owned or operated. So if they had a lease, I think it could still work on public land.
And does it require actual harvest, or can it be used for habitat restoration?
It could, I think it can be both. I believe up in the Puget Sound, they're doing both. Some of it is for production and some is just restoration. That's my understanding.
I'm on board with this one, and that's Pool Slough with Wetlands Conservancy. And so that would be and we've got a couple of landowners that would be totally ready to be a partner as well. We're getting natural
Cool.
sediment on some substrate there, and that appears to be one of the limiting factors. That's via Chris Langdon's analysis. And if you don't know Chris, he would jump at the chance to help us have a dialogue about it.
Okay, great. Tom?
Hey, yeah, just kind of adding to that, what Paul just said. As some folks probably know, Midcoast has a couple years of estuary work coming up through the Focused Investment Partnership. So I think we'd love to be at least part of that conversation, because we'll be doing a lot of tidal channel restoration, and there's definitely some added value, I think, potential collaboration there. So, and a week from today will be our estuary program manager will be starting her role. So we'll have some more added capacity there for that. And yeah, so just keep us in mind. We'd love to be part of that conversation, at least.
Great. Yeah, thank you. All right, so I think we've got some good conversations to follow up on there moving forward. And then, oh, this is just, so Tyler talked about this, the National Water Quality Initiative. Lincoln SWCD is working on finishing up the source water protection plan and outreach plan. And once that's complete, then there would be an opportunity for us to submit a proposal for implementation funding from NRCS in that area to address the issues that are identified on agricultural and private forest land in that area. I don't think we'll be ready for that this year. I don't know. Usually that call comes in the spring. So maybe next year we would be ready to apply for the funding to start the following year. Tyler, did you have anything to add on that? Okay. So that's all the projects that kind of have in the hopper, but where are we at? Quarter till. So we still have some time for updates. I want to go back and do that. I guess we'll just do it that you can raise your hand if you have a quick couple minute update or something that you want to share with the group, and we can go around.
And also, if you have an upcoming event or something you want to let people know about, please put the dates in the chat. It's a really good way for people to get the time and name of your event.
Mike?
Yeah, I can do a quick update. So we've got a number of equipped contracts doing pre-commercial thinning. And as Annie knows, we've had a heck of a time finding contractors willing to do the work for us. So if you know of any of them out there, send me their contact information. Love to add them to our list. We've been doing a bunch of invasive control on a couple of our properties also, so that's been moving along. And the other thing that we're short on is a forester. So if you know of any forestry applicants, this is our primary person that works on our timber sales. So send them my way if you know of it. And just as far as an announcement of something coming up, we're not involved in it, but the Small Woodland Owners seedling sale is this Saturday in Toledo at the Table Mountain forestry shop building there. I don't remember what the times are. I want to say maybe 10 to 2.
I think it's 10, yeah.
Something like that.
Great, thank you, Mike. Margaret?
Hi, some of you same folks heard this yesterday, but just wanted to update that Mackenzie River Trust is going to be launching our restoration of a 215-acre property that is tidal wetland, former cattle ranch, and so that'll be a levee breaching and channel restructuring and all the good stuff. And that is sorry, that's at the former Waite Ranch. We still call it that, but the name will be changing soonish. And that'll be launching in May. And it's super visible. It's right there in, just east of Cushman on Highway 126. And if anyone is interested in more information about that or being in the loop on communications about that, let me know. We will be doing some pre-restoration tours. Not sure of the capacity on those, but if you're interested, let me know. Also, we are recruiting for 3 jobs. Since Mike mentioned jobs, I'll mention jobs. We're looking for basically two restoration project managers with a little bit of stewardship on the side, and also a volunteer program coordinator. So if you're interested in those, you can check out our webpage. Our jobs page is pretty good. So that is it.
Great, thank you, Margaret. It's very exciting about Waite Ranch. Yeah. I will give a quick update that Dan Stark, OSU Extension Forester, sent me before he left the meeting. Tree School Coast is happening on March 4th in Waldport. I will be there with our new forester, Ty Seifert. We're gonna have a booth. I'm excited. I've never been to Tree School. Should be a good day. That they've got registration online. You can see all the classes that are offered. They also have a basic forestry short course that'll be coming up in the spring, and a growing redwoods in Oregon workshop in May. They had a workshop like that. I think it was last year, maybe it's 2 years ago now. So I guess they've got to follow up on that. They're doing continued work on invasive threats to Oregon, including the emerald ash borer and remorum leaf blight on Lincoln City. And then he's got a new newsletter that folks can sign up for on the Lincoln Extension website. Right. Don't see any other hands. Were there any other updates or last minute ideas, thoughts, questions that anybody wanted to share?
Just
Okay.
point out in the chat that Tom has a vet that's on there. So, and his updates are in the chat as well. If you want to take a look. Thank you, Tom.
Great.
Yeah, I'll just add real quick. That's our, we do our monthly community meetings first Thursday every month. And this month will be Cami Ellingson from Forest Service talking about the Salmon River estuary restoration and all the monitoring that's gone on there. And so there'll be an in-person option in Newport at the Pacific Maritime Heritage Center. And then it'll also be streamed on Zoom for folks that would rather join that way. So I see you there.
Great. Thanks, Tom.
Annie, I was just looking at my notes from pre-meeting I wanted to note that the Toledo is working on finalizing their source water protection plan. They got a grant from DEQ to do that.
Yeah.
Tyler's been helping with that. My initial impression is like they have money to do the plan, but not necessarily money to like implement their recommendations from the plan or priorities from the plan. They're not a major landowner in the Siletz where their main source water is for much of the year. So they're kind of, maybe their plan is sort of relegated to providing moral support, but moral support for good things. But I think they would be curious, that group, to know what is going on in terms of source water protection in that basin. And there might be an opportunity in their land ownership within their Mill Creek watershed when they finalize the plan to do some cooperative work with them. They do own that water, most of that little basin there. So yeah, I mean, it's a parallel project. It's kind of limited in scope, but they're limited in resources, but their scope is quite large because the catchment is so large for their water source.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to note that that's going on, and Tyler can probably flag us if there's something that occurs that's like a priority for cooperation.
Yeah, thank you for that. And that could be something that that we use for prioritizing both the forest health strategy, but also kind of fitting in with the NWQI once that plan is done. I mean, I think there's pretty much almost 100% overlap there. So I assume that those implementation funds would be able to help with that too. Tyler?
Yeah, and that's part of why I'm attending those meetings as well, to get a better handle on kind of what their priorities are, so we can fold that into our plan for just different sources of funding.
Yeah, great. All right. Any other last thoughts? Okay, so I will put together meeting notes and I'll email those out to everybody. They will be available on our website, and we'll also have the recording available on our website. It sometimes takes a little while to get that up there, but in the next week or two, for sure.
Could you also send that out by email?
Yeah, I'll send out the link to it. I think they're usually a big file. I don't know if I can actually send the file, but yep, I'll get that out to everybody. And yeah, and then I'll follow up with folks individually on some of those future projects that we were talking about. I really appreciate everybody's attendance, participation today. It's really great to virtually see you all. Get to go out and enjoy the snow for a little bit now. All right, take care, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Annie.
you.